afternoon. Welcome to the US Election Dialogues. We'll be live for the next 24 hours, tracking every development as this election reaches its conclusion. The voting is underway in most parts of the country. More than 100 million Americans have already cast their vote. That's 47% of the total registered votes. They're close to 230 million in all. The rest of them will vote today. By this time tomorrow, we should have a clear idea, hopefully, of who will be the next president of America. But will there be a clear transition of power? Will the showdown between Donald Trump and Joe Biden now play out in the courtroom? As we track the latest from America, let's go straight to our dialogue partners for this evening. From Washington, D.C., we have Lieutenant Stephen Rogers, a member of the Trump campaign. From Houston, Texas, we have Mustafa Tamiz, a Democratic strategist. Dhruv Jaishankar, the director of the U.S. initiative at the ORF, also with us from Washington, D.C. And finally, we have Nicole Brenner-Schmitz, a Democratic strategist, with us also from Washington, D.C. Good evening and welcome to all of you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Lieutenant Rogers, Donald Trump entered the final day of the campaign with all major opinion polls predicting a defeat for him. Data website 538 has simulated the election 40,000 times, and their modeling shows that Trump is losing in nearly 90% of the scenarios. Does the Trump camp still think they're going to win this one?
Well, there's no doubt in my mind that we're going to win. The polls, obviously, in 2016 proved to be wrong. They're wrong now. So we believe he's going to win. He's going to be victorious. Probably going to be surprising to a lot of people on the amount of electoral votes that he's got. So, look, this was a choice between a socialist agenda for America or our freedom. People are choosing freedom. Donald Trump will win.
Mustafa Tamiz, the polls did get it wrong in 2016. According to a poll in September this year, 11% of the voters remain undecided. Is the Democratic camp hopeful that this time will be different?
Well, I think that the record turnout that we've seen is a demonstration that it's an outright rejection of Donald Trump and Trumpism in America. This evening, you'll see states that have, voted Republican for decades, like Georgia, possibly Texas, and others, flip. And like my colleague said, he has no doubt. It feels like alternative facts, trying to create an alternative reality for the rest of us. But we will know this evening, and America will be turning the page on Donald Trump.
Dhruv Jaishankar, you tweeted earlier today, and you were referring to how pollsters got the Brexit vote completely wrong. Is this election the ultimate test, then, for opinion polls?
I mean, I think a number of things are different from that context. I mean, one, this is the two parties. Unlike 2016, you don't have a sizable third-party candidate, so a lot fewer undecideds. Parliamentary votes tend to be harder to discern and anticipate, particularly in a first-past-the-post system. So I think for a number of reasons, I think the polling quality suggests that it's better. Again, we may be surprised. But the quality of the polling, particularly in the battleground states this time, has been more frequent and of a higher quality overall.
Nicole Brenner-Schmitz, more than 100 million people have already voted, but close to 40 million people are eligible to vote. Will the last rush of voters then decide the outcome, according to you?
No, I don't think it's just the last rush. So what we've seen so far is tremendous turnout, like was mentioned, but it's important to see what key demographics are turning out. We've seen in Texas, over 100% of the young Black vote has already been met before even Election Day started. In Georgia, it was 97%. In North Carolina, it was 92%. So we're seeing key demographics that lean Democratic that turned out and voted early, and we're seeing that excitement exist today. And as far as the polling has gone, the polling did get it a bit wrong in 2016. But what wasn't getting it wrong was the district level polls. If we were looking at the polling of the congressional districts and not just the national polls, there were lots of indicators and signs that Clinton was not going to take certain states. And when we look at those polls this cycle, they are not presenting the same numbers and they are not showing the same indicators. And we're in fact estimating that Democrats will pick up 10 to 15 seats in the House.
Lieutenant Rogers, we saw store owners in New York today placing boards to protect their storefronts, non-scalable fences being erected at the White House. there are fears of potential unrest. Would you say that this is one of the most volatile presidential elections that you've seen in America?
It certainly is. There's been a lot of violence, and I've got to tell you, in all fairness, both sides don't condone violence. These people committing violence are not helping our country. They're not helping the process. And whether on the right or on the left, there is absolutely no room for violence in our process of governing. So I condemn all sides that commit all these horrific acts. And let's just hope and pray to God that after this is over, we're going to get our heads back where they belong and let the president who gets elected, I believe it'll be Trump, serve this country to the best of his ability.
Will Trump agree to a peaceful transition of power if he does not get elected? Because he's never said yes to that question. Lieutenant Rogers.
What was your question?
The question is, will Donald Trump agree to a peaceful transition of power if he loses this election? Because he's been asked this question repeatedly and he's never said yes.
Oh, yes, there'll be a peaceful transition of power. This is the mainstream media once again twisting words and putting words in his mouth. What he said, and Joe Biden has said this, and I agree with both of them, if there is a situation where there is a doubt as to who got elected, like we did with George Bush's election, they're going to exhaust all avenues in the courts. And then when the Supreme Court, if it goes to that, makes the decision, there will be a transition of power. Look, both of these guys, despite the politics, they're Americans. They want to preserve the integrity of this Constitution, and Donald Trump will do just that.
Mustafa Tamiz, do you fear that this election will be decided in the court?
No, I think that, as we've talked about throughout this broadcast, that the returns that we've seen, the record number of votes that we're seeing. I'm in Texas, in Harris County, the largest county in Texas, and 47,000 people have already voted this morning. So we're continuing to see a strong turnout. There's a repudiation for Donald Trump that's happening across this country, and we're going to see the end, because people are concerned that President Trump has said that he will not go quietly. He has said that he would go to the courthouse if he's not winning at the ballot box. And that what he keeps saying, that what he's doing is he's actually letting the rest of us know that go out and vote. Otherwise, you will continue to have a Donald Trump on your television screens. And I think mourning in America today means that a Donald Trump in 2021 that we will not have to see or hear from. And that's what Americans want, and that's why this record turnout is happening.
In all fairness, Donald Trump makes good TV. But Dhruv Jaishankar, is it just the media's imagination that this may end up in courts? Hasn't Donald Trump given every indication that he will not go without a fight if he loses?
I mean, it's hard to anticipate. I'm sure various scenarios are being gamed out. I think a lot of people are recalling the 2000 election, where a lot of things ultimately came down to Florida and disputed ballots there, went to the courts in Gore versus Bush. That was the resolution. This time around, I think most of the swing states should have their votes counted quite soon, quite quickly, with the exception of Pennsylvania. And so if it really comes down to that state, I think we could see it quite tightly contested going forward. But it may not come down to that one state.
Nicole Brenner-Schmitz, your thoughts on this, because this has been called the most litigated election in American history. 400-odd cases are already in courts, and there might be more, with both sides saying that they're preparing a battery of lawyers to take it forward once the voters have done their job.
Yeah, we've seen I think, historic number of cases contesting this, and we saw just yesterday Texas courts ruled that 127,000 ballots were not allowed to be thrown out in the state of Texas because it was done by drive-through, that these are fair and secure elections that we are having. I don't think it'll ultimately end up in the Supreme Court. I think that Joe Biden is going to have the electoral vote count that makes it clear who the winner is. And I am hopeful of what the previous panelists have said, which is that there will be a peaceful transition of power, because that is not just what our right is as Americans here, but it's what we hold dear. It's crucial to democracy continuing the way we know it.
Lieutenant Rogers, Donald Trump has made his prediction on Fox News, I'm told, and he has said that he's getting 306 electoral votes. Help us understand the math.
I believe that. I believe there'll be much more. Look, while the mainstream media is talking about polls, let's talk about the real poll. The number of people who have come out to see these candidates. 10,000, 20,000, in one case, 32,000 people went out to one of the president's rallies, and Joe Biden, he's had no shows at some of these rallies. So I think we're going to see, like I said earlier, a surprise of the number of electoral votes, which will break the record from the first time he ran. I really believe that based on what I see on the ground.
Mustafa Tamiz, is attendance in rallies an indicator of how much support a leader has? Also, Biden may be ahead in the battleground states, but the margins are very thin, especially in Ohio, where Trump has a lead of just 0.2%. These are very tight races. They may end up deciding the result. Is the Biden camp worried about these states?
Well, first, rallies make for good TV, and having a reality TV president, he enjoys them. He actually revels in them, and for him, it's fun. The other side to it is deadly for the people that are going to these rallies. We're in the middle of a pandemic. He's packing people in thousands into close corridors. No one's wearing masks. They're super spreader events. And while he's having a good time because he feels like he can go and people can chant and he feels like a rock star, it's deplorable for an American president to put the lives of Americans in danger just so that he can be on TV at a rally and have a good time. And as far as Ohio is concerned, look, I think it's a competitive state. I think Donald Trump has some strong following. I think he's got a base that ranges anywhere from 39% to 46%. I think he's at the low end of that right now. He's in his late 30s and early 40s. The record number of people that are voting shows that in these key battleground states, not only Biden is likely to win, but he's likely to pick up states like Georgia and be competitive in states like Texas. That means that state legislatures are going to change across the country. That means there are going to be more members of Congress that are Democrats, and it means that likely we're going to have the Senate on the Democratic side. So in 2021, you might have a Democratic Congress, a Democratic Senate, and a Democratic president.
We shall see. Dhruv Jaishankar, in India, we like to talk about anti-incumbency before every election. 100 million, close to 100 million Americans have already voted. This was early voting. A part of it can be attributed to the pandemic and the fact that they want to maintain social distancing. But would you say that this is also an indication of which way the vote may be going?
So traditionally, higher voter turnout has helped certain candidates, often the Democrats over Republicans, particularly the two elections that Obama won, 2008 and 2012, saw very high voter turnout, particularly from youth and minority groups. This year, I think we will have to see whether that plays out. Strangely enough, I mean, this is somewhat counterintuitive, but Trump seems to be polling slightly better with African Americans and Hispanics relative to 4 years ago. Still they overwhelmingly favor Democrats, but he has made some marginal gains with them. So again, there's some counterintuitive trends that you're seeing in some of the polling data emerging. But overall, the general consensus is that higher voter turnout will play in favor of the Democrats.
Nicole Brenner-Schmitz, this has been called one of the most divisive, if not the most divisive elections in American history. The pandemic still remains a concern for most of the world, including the US, which is the worst hit. But the surge in race tensions in America has also been talked about a lot. How much of it is an issue when people go and cast their vote?
Yeah, I think absolutely the virus is consistently what voters tell us is their number one concern. And I think Joe Biden has laid out a very solid plan for what he would do differently than the current administration is when it comes to addressing this pandemic. And that the idea that over 225,000 Americans have died from this disease is unacceptable. And this is something that we're seeing the voters are resonating with. It's not a choice between our economy and our citizens surviving. There is a path forward to have a strong economy and do what we need to do to protect everybody in this global pandemic and move forward towards vaccines and testing and contact tracing and keeping our kids safe. We saw the highest number of kids this week that are at school came testing positive, which then has ramifications for those that they live with in their house and the teachers. We're just not handling this pandemic in this safe way, and we're not handling it in the way that's best for the American economy to move forward. And this is absolutely what is top of mind for voters as they are going to the polls.
Right. I'm being told to wrap, but I want to quickly ask a question to all of you, one by one. Do you think by this time tomorrow we will have a clear indication of who will be in the White House, or is this going to be an election week and not an election day? We'll start with Lieutenant Rogers.
Only if one of the candidates has a clear early vote, high turnout rate. We will know tomorrow morning. But my guess is that's not going to happen. It's going to take a little while before we find out who wins this election. Dhruv
Jaishankar.
I think we'll have a strong sense of which candidate is in pole position 24 hours from now. We may not have a losing candidate concede by then, though.
Mustafa Tamiz, your thoughts?
Joe Biden is going to be the next president of the United States. We will know that tonight, and Donald Trump will have a difficult morning the next day.
Well, that is quite descriptive. Nicole Brenner-Schmitz.
I think we'll know by tomorrow afternoon if Florida or Georgia or North Carolina finish a clear Biden victory tonight, then we'll know this evening. But I think by tomorrow afternoon, we will have a clear idea on the electoral votes. But I agree with the second panelist. I don't know that we'll have someone having conceded yet.
Right. Just a few hours to go then. We'll be tracking all of this. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us and sharing your thoughts with us.